What's up, Taiwan? I'm Louise Watts with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. A former US National Security Advisor has arrived in Taiwan to meet with President Lai Ching-te. Matthew Pottinger has been outspoken about the risks he says China poses to the international community, and especially to Taiwan. We can get more now from TaiwanPlus reporter Louise, who's live for us in Taipei. Louise, just who is Matt Pottinger?
Well, Louise, as you mentioned there, Pottinger served as the Deputy National Security Advisor to former US President Donald Trump. That was 2019 to 21. Now he serves as the chairman of the China program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. That's a think tank based in the US Capitol. But despite not currently holding any official political position, Pottinger remains a prominent voice on the subject of China, and he speaks pretty fluent Mandarin. He often talks to the threats that Beijing poses to global stability and criticizes the US government's lack of action to counter Xi Jinping's authoritarian moves in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond.
Louise, do we know what Pottinger and Lai talked about? And this isn't Pottinger's first visit to Taiwan, is it?
That's right, Louise. Pottinger was here in Taiwan just last summer to meet with then-President Tsai Ing-wen. If his last visit is anything to go by, this round of conversations has probably been about Taiwan's increasing prominent position on the international stage and about how the US can be doing more to support its allies like Taiwan in the region. In his opening statements to President Lai Ching-te this morning, Pottinger said, I quote, "We're going to exchange views on things that Taiwan, but also things that the US should be doing, in some cases doing together in close coordination to safeguard Taiwan's security." Pottinger has said repeatedly that the US should provide more arms to Taiwan in the face of an increasingly aggressive China. But he's also said that he's optimistic that this is a conflict that could be avoided with more investment from the US and a stronger, united front against China.
Strong message there from Matt Pottinger, chairman of the China program at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you to Louise for bringing us those updates. Taiwan has reported 23 Chinese military aircraft and 7 naval ships operating around the country in the span of 24 hours. 19 of the aircraft were spotted breaching the country's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This airspace is not part of Taiwan, but is used by the military as a defensive buffer zone. Among the group of aircraft, a military drone was also spotted circling around the southwestern corner of Taiwan towards the east coast. Taiwan's military says it's monitoring the situation and has deployed air defense systems. Chinese Premier Li Qiang is on a rare visit to New Zealand to renew China's, quote, traditional friendship with the country. Supporters and a smaller group of protesters flocked to see Li's motorcade in the capital, Wellington. Li is the most senior Chinese official to visit New Zealand in 7 years. His visit comes as the South Pacific nation toughens its stance on China and its presence in the region. Li is set to travel on to Australia and Malaysia as well. Beijing has been rolling back its tariffs on Australian goods that started when relations soured in 2020. China remains the largest export market for Australia and New Zealand. Taiwan is preparing new rules to govern the use of cryptocurrency. The country's Financial Supervisory Commission is set to submit draft laws by the end of the year. The goal is to prevent fraud and money laundering. Commission head Peng Jinlong says the anonymous cross-border nature of cryptocurrency makes it fertile ground for scams. Fraud cases involving crypto have been on the rise in Taiwan. One recent case saw 32 people indicted, included a well-known lawyer. New figures show the average salary in Taiwan rose slightly in the first 4 months of the year, but not all sectors are seeing the same growth. John Van Trieste reports.
Some good news for workers in Taiwan. The latest government figures show many employees are earning slightly more these days. From January to April, the average salary was just over $1,400 a month. And though inflation ate up much of these gains, total earnings, including bonuses, came out to around $2,000 a month for the average worker, an increase of more than 1% from the same period last year.
外需的一些需求带动之下，其实我们在经常性薪资跟总薪资的这个部分，它的增幅其实都是有一定的成长幅度。
Demand for workers is also high. Job search platforms are listing over 1 million unfilled positions in the country, which has a population of around 23 million people. But some sectors are seeing much higher salaries than others. Much of the growth has been in the tech industry.
目前的就业数来看，全台湾大概22000个工作数是属于半导体产业的。AI 的人才需求，现在每个月也有24000个工作数，人才需求这样，薪资就会比较上涨。
In semiconductors and AI, the average worker takes home around $1,700 a month. That's less than IT and finance workers, but several hundred more than workers in hospitality or manufacturing. Taiwan's leading tech research institute predicts a bonanza year for the semiconductor industry, with production worth over $158 billion, up nearly 18% from last year, meaning the gap may widen still. Ryan Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Leaders of the group of 7 nations are set to announce $50 billion in aid to Ukraine, taking advantage of seized Russian assets. The money would come from accrued interest on $325 billion that was frozen when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022 and would be delivered to Ukraine by the end of the year. US President Joe Biden has been pressuring fellow G7 countries to agree to the move. The US separately said it would sign a security agreement with Kyiv to lock in American support for a decade. 4 Russian Navy ships have arrived in Cuba ahead of joint military exercises in the Caribbean. The vessels, including a nuclear-powered submarine, are anchored in Havana Harbor, less than 200 kilometers from Florida. Russia and Cuba are longtime allies, but the visit is seen as a show of force amid tensions with the West over Ukraine. US officials say they're monitoring the visit closely, but that it does not pose a threat to their country's security. The families of Israeli hostages are demanding their government accept a ceasefire deal to free remaining captives in Gaza. Hundreds of protesters gathered in Tel Aviv, calling for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to approve the latest US-backed ceasefire proposal. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says mediators will keep working to get Israel and Hamas to agree to end the war. Over 37,000 people have been killed in Gaza since the conflict started, according to health authorities there. An estimated 120 hostages taken by Hamas on October the 7th remain in Gaza, though around 40 of them are believed to be dead.
I hope that for this time it won't be a disappointment like last time and the time before that. We already had like 6 or 7 cycles of hope and despair and hope and despair. But what can we do? We are clinging on to any hope there is.
India's Prime Minister has promised to lift the country from the world's 5th to 3rd largest economy in the next 5 years. And one way he aims to do that is through heavy investment in technology, namely chips. Sally Jensen got an up-close look at where the country's first semiconductor plant will be going.
Wake up to your dreams. A promotional video extols the untapped potential of a dynamic new high-tech city, the future of India. This is what the local government of Dholera envisions, ambitious plans for a 920 square kilometre piece of land in the middle of the western state of Gujarat. This area is vast, arid and home to few people, but it's set to house the country's first semiconductor manufacturing plant, or chip fab.
They will start the construction Very soon, maybe in next 3 months, they will start the actual construction, and the fab will be ready for commissioning in 2026.
The Dollara plant, which will cost around $11 billion to build, is a collaboration between India's Tata conglomerate and Taiwan's power chip semiconductor manufacturing company, or PSMC. The local government here is eager to show us how this chip manufacturing hub is developing. And with reason, because once this whole place is completed, it'll be the key to India achieving its ambitious goal of becoming a high-tech economic powerhouse. That's as Prime Minister Narendra Modi, recently elected to a third term in office, plans to push India 2 spots to become the world's third largest economy.
वो समय दूर नहीं जब भारत दुनिया का ग्रीन एनर्जी हब होगा, फार्मा हब होगा, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स हब होगा, ऑटोमोबाइल हब होगा, सेमीकंडक्टर हब होगा.
He aims to harness manufacturing and high-tech industry like semiconductors to reach that goal. The Tata PSMC plant would produce 22-nanometer chips, which function as the brains of modern electronics. The local Gujarat government hopes that the new plant will attract other tech companies to set up shop here. But they have to assure investors that there's enough reliable power for the energy-intensive chip-making industry.
In case anyone down, so second source is allowed, no interrupted for any chances.
Taiwanese chip giant TSMC has faced challenges in its ventures abroad, most notably when setting up in the US in the desert state of Arizona, since making semiconductors requires massive amounts of water. This experience raises questions about whether chip fabs in similarly dry Dollara will consume more than they produce.
We have already built in almost all the consideration for the environment, for the ecology, and the region is little swamp. We have taken care of that also. This part we have already built in our overall planning for Semicon City.
The local government has high hopes that once completed, the new hub will snowball, attracting more foreign investment and become India's city of the future. For now, the Dollara Semicon vision remains just that, until this patch of dry land blooms and a new centre of tech for the country is born. John Su, Suvan Pal and Sally Ensign in Gujarat, India for TaiwanPlus.
From India back to Taiwan, and Taiwan's global edge in semiconductors is getting even stronger. Production value is expected to expand 17% this year compared to 2023. According to Taiwan's leading tech research institute, the production value of chips is set to grow from $131 billion last year to $154 billion this year, a record high. The growth is being put down to booming demand for AI chips, which will be used in consumer electronics as new products like AI personal computers hit the market. Mountains of dumped mattresses in central Taiwan are putting pressure on the area's waste systems. Taichung City says an average of 6,000 mattresses have been thrown away every month this year, leading to a pile of 11,000 waiting to be processed. The backlog is blamed on the city's growing population and problems with processing facilities. Residents there are frustrated at the lack of solutions.
当然夸张了啊，太恐怖了，这个要回收的问题也是很麻烦的。
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we'll leave you with pictures from Croatia of some rather nice-looking vintage cars. I'm Louise Watt. Take care. I'll see you next time.